Oh, it's okay.
Yeah, we just missed a couple of gems right there.
Yeah.
That's great.
So, Griff wants to help us integrate with the DAO and build our community features and decision support and task support.
Okay, so not the DAO, but the DAO framework. Integrate with the DAO framework, because
Absolutely. I mean, the first thing we get rid of is the split. Okay.
yeah.
Now. Okay.
Yeah, if you guys don't want the split, that's totally understandable. And that's the thing.
What we're doing is more democratic. So we only use the token holders are only have power for conflict resolution. Okay, the Divvy token holders are, regardless of the number of tokens you have, you only have the vote that's been delegated to you. Okay.
Oh, cool.
It's democratic.
Nice.
But it's representative. It's fractal.
So then you're basically using Jordy's DAO token holder.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, it's basically just a technique. He integrated that right into the DAO, itself, very nicely.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But the contracts, I mean, the vote is just a contract. It's a so the decision structure that that a pool is assigned to can be any structure you want. Okay, it's not it's not necessarily a person that's a pool. I think you understand that. Maybe not.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, I don't know how you guys do it at all. I definitely I pretty much understand how Jordy does it.
Right.
Yeah.
Jordy's presentation includes the case where instead of a person being in charge of a pool, a contract is in charge of a pool, and that's the point that I wanted to make. That we can build any kind of organizational structure we want through pool contracts. But our problem is that we have to change it from we just have to change from a vote per Divvy token to a vote per identity, a vote per person.
How are you managing identity? Kind of just like you guys know this person, so then delegate a vote because you've met him kind of on like a video thing like this?
Yeah, well, you're brought into a group, a team by invitation, or you request to be part of a group, and either it's open and anybody can get in, or it's on a trust basis. So that's the contract of the group.
Oh, cool.
So there's a lot to build, and but there's a lot we can get started with today. It's really cool.
What were you saying, Brent?
I was just going to say maybe Jim could give 2 sentences on his background, just kind of fill Griff in on just a basic introduction, and then maybe you could give him a 2-sentence introduction on your background and what you're doing right now. I don't know if you did that already, but I think we put that in.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I'm a community leader in Scenario and Divvy, Scenario representatives to the Divvy, and I'm a retired technologist that has always been at the edge, and at this point things change.
Jim,
And,
Jim, we're getting too much back.
Yeah, I'm not sure where the background noise is coming from. I think it's Brent, actually.
yes, it's Brent. You can see it. He lights up.
Yeah. Well, now he's quiet.
So I'm an information.
So you're, and you work with Sonero.
Yes, I'm a community leader there, and
Nice.
the
Work for Sonero. I haven't, or at least work in the system.
no, I'm not working on the system per se yet. I'm planning to be working on the system in the Divvy.
Yeah.
I've been invited in the development group, but I'm retired. I don't follow orders anymore. I do what I do. Okay.
Yeah.
I need the money.
Nice. Yeah.
I sure would like to earn some Divvy dollars.
Yeah. Nice, dude.
You know.
Yeah. I'm curious about Sonero. I'm a little curious about Sonero. Do you know? Do you have a couple minutes just to say what their progress is, how far along they are, in where they're trying to go?
Well,
because it almost sounds like Divvy and Sonero have a lot of things in common.
well, yeah, absolutely, and I think we have different organizations with different roles in the Divvy. I mean, that can change, but right now we have Free Trust, which is another project that I'm a leader in, followed by a company I'm part of, ProvenSecure.com. But the Divvy, the Free Trust, we hope to get some funding for, but the Free Trust is the sort of the side responsible for the security and authentication and identity component of Divvy. They're leading those areas right now anyway. And the scenario side is really user agent. Okay, you have this big blockchain in the back, but you don't have anything that works on behalf of the user. So for intelligence, the user rules are the scenario. Okay, and it's one big formal process calculus machine that we all share, this huge intelligence. It's an awesome vision. So we want to build, we want to, connect the Free Trust login to the scenario interface or the scenario rules. And then we run those rules outward using standards like UMA, user managed authentication, to the outside world, to control your data or let somebody access your bank account or, whatever it's supported in the identity ecosystem. So
very cool.
We're looking outward from scenario, whereas the scenario team is working inward on scenario.
Yeah.
We're hoping to do a prototype with the code that they have from 2 years ago that has been proven in production for 2 years. They've now decided to replace it completely. But it's a place we can start and we can build social contracts by individual rules. So every piece of your identity or intellectual property or work product, okay, is governed by social contracts that you choose. Okay, they're imposed on you. Okay.
Yeah.
So we can start prototyping those using the old code. And then next year, when we can, everything gets ported to Rowline, which is the row calculus DSL.
What was it called again? Grow line?
Rolang, yeah, it's a scenario, and it's homegrown scenario. It's based on the row calculus, which is Greg Meredith's version of the pi calculus. That is mobile asynchronous communicating processes.
Interesting. Yeah, it's not your mic, by the way. I'm using internet Wi-Fi, so it just cuts out sometimes.
I hope everyone's not having that problem. So,
yeah, no, hey, Griff, I think, Griff, do you have some music in the background that, because I think that's cutting in as well.
Oh man, yeah. I guess I should just mute once in a while because I'm sitting at an Asian restaurant. They're playing this like random Asian music. I don't even know.
That's cool, but yeah, I mean, if you mute, that might help because that's cutting into Jim. So it's very difficult to hear him.
Gurinder, welcome. And Griff, why don't you, I want more than 2 sentences. If you can give a 2-sentence introduction, that would be appreciated. Uh-oh, you're frozen. You're on mute.
To me, yeah, I'm back. Well, let's see. I have a master's degree in digital currencies. I'm actually going to Cyprus this week to go pick it up, which is kind of exciting. And I've been working with Slockit for what seems like forever, but I guess only 9 months since September of last year to push forth the DAO concept get it into the world. Working with the standard DAO framework, which sounds like you guys are contemplating using parts of it at least, right?
Absolutely. Okay, one of the objectives in our living document is that we remain compatible with the DAO code, or where it goes, the DAO 2.0, whatever it becomes.
Awesome. That is awesome. That is how we, at least that really makes me happy, because that's something that Christoph and Lefteris and I were all really pushing for, to make sure is really easy to integrate with, and make sure, I think I said this earlier, but that all of our documentation, all of our everything that we do goes on GitHub and can be used by anyone who wants to create a DAO, and is almost as easy as copy paste if you wanted to do it that way, or even better, if you actually know what you're doing, you can cut out things like splitting, or cut out reward tokens, or cut out things that don't serve your purpose. But it should still be able to integrate, and you can still use our token creation wizard and our voting interface and all that stuff. So hopefully that'll work out. Yeah. So it's really inspiring to see that there are other groups doing this, because I don't get to hear about it that often. Actually, it's like people are. I mean, I'm very busy sometimes. It's true, and our whole team. We're hoping we'd get funding one day and we could hire more people. But eventually, we want to have people that are. I want to have the time to be helping you guys to set your stuff up, because we want to DAOify the world. Making one really big DAO is not really the goal for. I mean, we want to do the universal sharing network. That's like one major part of our project, but another major part of our project is to, push this DAO concept out into the world so other people can try to use it for creating awesome systems like your identity management system. Do you guys have other? You're more than just identity management, though, right? Is there
decision support and task support. You have to have identity before you can do anything. And we're building on Uport, and we're creating strong anonymous identities. Okay, so that you get reputation from the people who know your name, but you don't have to reveal your name to anybody else because of, well, the webs of trust. What's that noise?
That was probably me. Sorry.
People who you trust and trust me can, you know, will give you a strong indicator that I am a person, not a robot, and I am, you know, I have a strong identity, and, you know, other facts that, you know, I may want you to know, like I'm over 21. So you don't need to know my name to know I'm over 21. I mean, this is the way it's going, and that, you know, we're doing it, we're trying to do it right. We're looking at scientific, objective measures and how group processes work, and we did a mind panel show on that. You know, how we can develop a collective intelligence rather than the lowest common denominator. Get group solutions that are better than the best individual solution in the group. Which, if you watched the Doug Rushkoff interview yesterday, it was just awesome. You'll get a rerun of some of this. But
Well, what was that?
Doug Rushkoff is my leader. Okay, he's my guide. Okay, he knows what the internet used to be, and you know, when we created it. You know, and nobody would have ever dreamed. You know, you have to watch some of his videos or read some of his books if you don't know Doug Rushkoff.
I will. I actually have to run, guys. But if I at least I want to, at the very least, extend the olive branch of like peace. I don't know if it's peace, but extend the branch of, hey, if you guys run into anything with the DAO stuff, feel free to give me you know, just drop me a message on the Slack, and I'll definitely get back to you, and we'll work out whatever you guys need help with.
Thanks, Griff. You guys did an excellent job. It's too bad somebody had to do nefarious things, but you guys did an awesome job of coordinating all that.
It would have been better to have a smaller beta test.
It was a great experiment, though.
Yeah,
like,
you know, we tested it for so long, and we eventually.
Yeah, I have to send you the link to my Medium article on the DAO exploit aftermath, you know, as of the middle of the last week. All right, Guy, thank you so much for joining us and joining the Divvy. And you've already earned some Divvy tokens, Divvy dollars. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming, Griff. It was surprising to see you here when I finally got on.
Yeah, I'm so glad you made it. I was worried about you. But I haven't heard you like in 2 days, and I see all the work you're doing all over the place. So I know you're dead.
Yesterday, I woke up to the cats had eaten the shit out of my headphones, and so and we moved a friend in, so my house is in disarray. Right?
Uh-oh. Maybe we lost Jeff.
Oh. All right, I'm back. Right.
Okay. Yeah. So give us your 2-sentence introduction.
Mine.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Jeff. I'm working with the DivvyDAO to attempt to as Jim was just saying, we want to build the DAO 2.0 or the framework that will be that copy paste that Griff was talking about as well. and there's identity that is part of it. And something else we've been bouncing around lately that I'm excited about is social contracts, which can take over when the code actually doesn't work the way you expected, such as just happened with the DAO. Other than that, I don't know too much more to say. The DivvyDAO is right in line with a research project that I worked on for about 5 years. So the Ethereum and decentralized computing wasn't around back then. So now that it is, we're kind of like shaking the dust off the binders and going through it. And I don't know, we'll see what we can build with it.
All right, so Brent, Jeff, and myself are the current leaders in the Divvy. Daniel, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hey, what's up? My name's Daniel. I guess I run a couple of online shows, and I'm part of the Minds community, and recently been part of the Scenario community leaders, and hooking up with the Divvy. A lot of the stuff that we deal with on our shows are about the philosophy of social contracts, about how do we create communities and these cultures that create an environment to create this kind of collective, collaborative, new ethos and working together, and also to, you know, we're all about decentralized in the way we work, and that's basically why I'm so excited about the Divvy and glad making these connections. Actually, too, I guess a little shout out to anybody on this panel. Saturday at 6, I have a show that always on that day, but this Saturday we're doing social contracts as the topic. So I would like to get a couple people from the Divvy and work more, because Jim's been jumping in. Yesterday he jumped in onto just a meeting that we had, and then we kind of made a little video. But working more in this collaborative nature, I think is always awesome. Yeah, that's it.
Hey, thanks, Daniel. And certainly the social contracting, you probably want to invite Greg. He might show up, and that would be awesome.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So who else do we have here? Rappin' Dennis? I can't pronounce it. Can you speak, Rappin' Dennis, or are you just I guess you're just lurking. Did he put anything in the chat? His mic is not working. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and, you know, what brought you here or whatever, or what your interests are in the chat? And so Jeff has been very busy behind the scenes. I don't know if everyone here has seen the spreadsheet. Jeff's actually done some transactions on testnet for the DAO token, and what Greg, who was oh boy, I forgot his name already. Who's the Slacket guy?
Griff Green.
Griff, yeah.
Griff?
Griff Green is his name.
Griff, yeah. It's my drain damage kicking in. But Griff.
Griff is like the Christian of Slocket.
Griff was saying that what we need to do is take the whole framework for the DAO token and use that, and you know, then we get voting and reporting on their website.
On their website?
Yeah, we can put the address of the DAO on the URL, because they always intended that there would be lots of DAOs, and so the facilities they created for handling token will work for us. Except we only use voting in that manner for conflict resolution. Okay, in other words, the vote's democratic, essentially, with pooled contracts that control the decision, the actual decision process being used.
I wonder if it's the standard token arrangement that can be tracked easily, because like if we don't allow the split function, which would be great, because I think that people involved with the Divvy should not be thinking that they're going to split. They should instead be thinking they're joining something for life.
I beg to, you know, that's the way I was thinking. But after talking to Griff, I understood what they were, the vision that they had, and you know, the great synergy of us following that vision you know, the Divvy becomes a DAO incubator. Okay, and the community split, but they can interact.
Did they fix the problems? Like
no, we're not supporting. We're not going to support that for a long time.
Okay, that's what I was wondering, because I thought that the child DAOs didn't quite act like the parent DAO that they deployed.
For now, we're definitely ripping out the split code.
Yes. Okay. Because what I was actually working on was since UI and Brent are the three major figureheads right here right now. What I was gonna get is a testnet address from each of you and make a multi-sig contract wallet that would allow that would require 2 out of 3, and that multi-sig contract wallet, instead of when you go to build the DAO, it uses message sender to deploy tokens to. But instead of using message sender, I was going to hard code in the contract wallet that we built, so that a shared wallet between the three of us becomes a massive repository of tokens that none of us can handle unless it's agreed upon. And that's where the tokens can come from that get handed out based on a 2 of 3. So like if you earn tokens, then me and Brent are going to have to 2 or 3 multi-sig to you.
Essentially, it's Jordy's pool, right, with the pool contract.
No, it's the multi-sig contract that you can do when you make a new wallet in Mist. You know, when you first start at Mist and it says you should create a contract wallet. It's that.
Okay, we can do it that way, but you know, I think the simple mechanism, you know, is to have a contract that says, you know, if I have the 2 out of 3 signatures, okay, then I do this transaction. Okay,
That's all.
Otherwise I fail. It's a simple contract that can be attached to a pool, one of Jordy's pools. So it's almost no effort for us to implement at that level. Now the wallet probably will come into it, you know, when you're talking about, you know, transacting money and stuff like that. But just for voting, you don't need wallets. That's, you know, I mean, you need a pool of votes. And
what I'm talking about
what the votes are, okay, what the votes are, we haven't designed yet, actually.
but what I'm talking about is how to get the initial token distribution. What you're talking about is what do we do with the tokens
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So like upon deployment in the DAO code from socket, message sender becomes the god of the smart contract, so to speak. And instead of having the message sender become the god of the contract, I'm thinking of having a 2 out of 3 multisig become the god of the contract.
Okay, well, we can
Keep it trustless.
Griff was saying, you know, we can use the code right as is. Now, Rapid Dennis is a programmer, and he's asking if he can contribute. And damn, you know, we got a lot of, you know, libertarians and shit in here, but we don't have enough programmers for sure. And that's why we're running these programming workshops. And Jeff did an excellent job in the last one. The second one is okay. But don't bother with the first one.
Yeah. To answer your question about the multi-sig, Dennis, nobody owns it. I'm proposing that we do a multi-sig for the instantiation efforts, and it was a 2 or 3 multi-sig out of Jim, Brent, and I here in this chat right now. We've been really active. If we get more I would have loved to have more active people, so it'd be more like a 3 out of 5 or 4 out of 7. But at this point, it's the 3 of us that have been kind of spearheading it. So for now, I don't know if you're familiar with Expanse, but they have what they did was they pre-mined a number of tokens, and I'm not sure how they did their trustless mechanism, but they pretty much forked Ethereum, pre-mined a bunch of tokens, and those tokens are now their repository, or reserve, I think is the word they use. And that's exactly the kind of thing I'm going for here is we have the tokens pre-mined, but they're in a reserve, so it's not like somebody owns them, which happens in some projects where, you know, like 80% of the tokens are owned by like the initial devs, and they grasp a hold of them tightly. Now, you wouldn't want to come on to the Divvy project if, you know, if Brent was just handing out tokens without anybody's permission, but you might be more willing to come onto it if the tokens you're going to get from a reserve come from a multi-sig contract. It's just a little bit more trustless. I'm not sure if you agree. We always love feedback, and
yeah,
GitHub.
I agree completely. The contract can be anything, and you know, the way we are getting weak consensus, you know, in the DAO currently is simply by co-signing, signing and co-signing, which is 2 signatures.
Absolutely.
On each guy.
I have a question. Just on a contingency basis, with 2 out of 3 that say I got struck by lightning tomorrow and I was a goner, how would this play out?
Well, by weak consensus, we would add another leader.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the smart contract wallet wouldn't play out very well, though. But it's only testnet. So that's why I was thinking of, you know, the iterate early, iterate often, just trying this for now.
But Griff was saying we should take the whole framework of the DAO token. He was not recommending us just starting with 0 token, starting from scratch with Ethereum tokens. I think we should really look into that. It seems like we get a lot if we include that DAO token framework, the whole DAO token framework.
But that comes with those bugs.
No, there's no. We don't have to take anything else from the DAO, but except the, well, we take out the split. That's for sure.
Their token framework, they didn't do anything. They didn't modify that at all. That's the token framework that you find everywhere. That's just the token. That's the standard token framework from the Ethereum improvement proposals.
Yeah, I think we should we need to talk to Griff so that I understand.
Standard tokens are definitely the way to go. That's what Colony's doing, and that's what everybody's doing, and that's what I wanted for token management. The standard tokens are the ones that are going to matter.
And I wanted to use the U-port identities.
You know who else would be a good person to see if he could schedule something would be Christoph Jentz, if he would be willing to show up with Griff maybe at another time, if we could schedule that, if they would be so kind.
Yeah, well, they seem to be really supportive of what we're doing. And can you take care of getting Griff added to the document as a DAO representative? And I don't know what else needs to be done. You know,
Are you talking on this spreadsheet here?
Well, we have to update the spreadsheet here also. I don't know. I just want to make sure there's no problem with the permissions here.
Yeah, I tried earlier, and I think there's something going on, but
okay.
You know.
It says that you can edit.
Weird. I'll try again.
Yeah. So yeah, we want to as much as much of the housekeeping you can take care of. I would would really appreciate it, because there's just so much shit to do. But
yeah, but I want to be clear that
you brought in Griff, so.
I'd like to ask you to be clear where you want me to include that. Are you talking that big long list of everything under the umbrella, or are you talking this document here?
Oh, well, in the DivvyDAO document, he needs to be added to the representatives from the DAO.
The living document.
The living document. You know
as far as supporters, it might be a good idea to add another tab to that spreadsheet right there, the Divvy token spreadsheet, and just start keeping track of supporters there. Like, for instance, that column that has our public keys in it could just go into that spreadsheet.
While we're speaking, I'm going to go do that other one.
Right. And Griff is also, right, Griff is, okay. He said his he said his what am I doing?
So which website did Griff say was tracking DAO tokens? Did he give you a URL?
URL for what? I'm sorry.
You said Griff mentioned some website that could track DAO tokens.
Well, it was the voting site and everything work.
What voting site?
The websites, where you vote on the DAO.
I haven't seen any websites where you vote on the DAO.
Really? How could that be? I could have sworn we looked at it together.
There's code in the open. If maybe that's what he was talking about, the code in GitHub.
No, he's talking about the websites where you manage where all the DAO functionality is, including the voting and all that. Oh, geez.
I didn't realize they'd made some centralized place where you could do that.
Yeah, it was really nice that they had a built-in JavaScript wallet, and nice little you could expand any item, and the only thing was missing was a link to consider it. Otherwise, it's really cool. Let's see.
Hey guys, when you're trying to get like the 3 documents, where's the one place that you go all the time? I guess I just need to save it somewhere, but I have a hard time finding the 3 things like on a whim. How do you guys do it? Where do you go?
You're missing some. Okay, so DAO, DivvyDAO.org has everything but the spreadsheet.
Yesterday it was down.
Google servers that we're using, unfortunately. Actually 3.
The web. I tried going there a couple times yesterday, and it was not up. You guys aware of that?
It could be that the voting is not up.
DivvyDAO. Yep, server not found.
Okay, but the
All right, that link, yeah, DAO Hub doesn't host that, and it only links to my Ether wallet, which also doesn't host it. That's a local JavaScript, doesn't upload your keys to anywhere kind of safety feature. Yes, yeah, that I checked out. Thank you, Rapid Dennis. And all that is that code that I was just talking about, the open source code that's in the GitHub already. Yes, that code could be hosted on any page that offers JavaScript functionality.
okay, so we add rapid data here. Programming. I mean rapid. What is it?
Rapid Dennis.
Is it like this? No.
RAPID.
What?
Yeah, like that.
What happened? I thought I added the riff. I guess not.
But I would love public keys from both you guys, so I can make that multi-sig wallet.
Right, that's public keys for testnet you want.
Yes, for testnet. Yeah. Yeah, I suggest not using any keys that have ever had any activity. I use keys that had a little bit of activity, but only on testnet, so there's no real ether in them. But one of the things that I don't like about the idea of using the DAO 1.0 construct, just forking it vanilla style, as Griff mentioned, is that you would need test ether to buy in at the rate of 1 per 100, and it's really hard to get test ether right now. And not only that, but those who have more test ether would have an imbalance of power than those who had less test ether, the same way that those who had more ether would have more power than those who had less ether when they bought into the DAO. So
Yeah.
that's why I was trying to make a contract which would distribute a reserve of tokens that had a 2 of 3 multisig, so that the tokens would be distributed based on our contributions. And then when we buy into a DAO construct, instead of buying in with test ether, we'd be buying in with our previous tokens instead.
Yeah. You know, I think we want to build in more human control here. And we want to have entry points where we can make entries with the right signature and transactions of the tokens, so that the, essentially the buy-in could be disabled, but it needs to be tested, because we want
that's why I want you guys.
We want people to buy in with real ether.
This is on testnet. There is no real ether on testnet.
I know. I mean, but what, when we go live, we have to test it on testnet. When we go live, we want real ether.
Well, at that point, you're talking about an ICO, which then falls under legal territory.
Yeah, we have to work that out. But it's just contributions to the Divvy. It's not an investment. So
yeah. Well, wording it correctly, yeah. Declaring intent that way does help. I was listening to a podcast yesterday about the legalities from somebody in Washington, D.C., how they're looking at anything you do on the blockchain has nothing to do with the code that you're deploying. It has to do with the intent that you're going with. So if you're intending to deploy code that will say insure something, then now you fall under insurance law. It has nothing to do with the code. It has to do with the intent of the product or service that you're developing. So if you're developing money, then now you're under money exchange laws. And, if you're developing something that's simply representing contributions, then it could be arguably, game tokens or frequent flyer miles or something more along those lines. And some places like Shop and Save or something, like, they even get, I don't know if it's Shop and Save, but he was mentioning that some grocery stores even have their gamified tokens. They're actually able to call them dollars. Like somehow they're able to get away with that.
Right. And Divvy dollar sounds so nice.
It really does. It really does. But I mean, I don't want to pick anybody out of a pile of cryptos, but there's a crypto that we're all familiar with that doesn't want to have its token intermingled with the idea that there's a value in currency involved, but at the same time they're using it as a value in currency when they're paying people to do certain things. So even though the intent might not be there, the people that have come along are using it for a different intent that might be looked at, like the authorities might say, you developed this with this intent, but then you guys started using it for this other intent, so now you fall under that category.
Right.
You know, and so like,
they could easily get us, if we're small enough. That's why I'm hoping, that voices like Doug Rushkoff and Alan Levine, Tokenly, can speak out for us. We're making ourselves a target. There's no question about that, and it is information war. And I think we should all participate in the philosophy channel on ScenarioNet.
you mentioned a more automated option to divvy out tokens would be preferable, and I agree with that on so many levels.
Yeah,
obviously, it makes it easier.
It's going to be the same. It'll be multi-sig, okay, but it'll be on the blockchain.
Well, it wouldn't even be multi-sig. It would be a contract-owned wallet instead of a multi-sig-owned wallet. So it would be, but also because it's a contract-owned wallet, if the intent when you programmed it was to not make it act like money and instead make it act more like an hour exchange, maybe a contract somehow figures out how many hours you put into a chore or a task, and somehow is able to determine how many tokens you get from that.
Right.
Instead of
these are the kinds of things we want to evolve. These are the kind of, people have a lot of ideas on what they think the best tax structure is, and we're going to experiment with all of them.
Yeah, that's the only way. The same way Greg and them experimented with so many different languages to figure out the best one, that's what we're going to have to do too. We're going to have to figure out so many different ways. Hopefully we attract a number of coders and testers so that we can have a team of white hats and black hats so that they can compete against each other.
Right. Well, we're bringing this, into the OWASP community, and I'm supposed to be working on a proposal to them as we speak, but that's 4,000 security makers, breakers, and users around the world, and it's a distributed autonomous organization. And this is perfect for them, especially in the light of the DAO attack. This is going to be hot. So I'm hoping and we'll get some funding from them. They'll earn some Divvy tokens. Hopefully, if they adopt it for themselves, we'll get a lot of money from them.
Daniel, I watched your past few Minds Panels shows, and I'm really intrigued by how you're not blockchain centered. You're more philosophy and almost psychology centered. It's interesting to look at things from a realistic social perspective than, I've had my head so wrapped in code that I can barely talk to people anymore.
Yeah. It's funny because, that's kind of how it started. And then we've been working our way to the blockchain, and I see this is where our collaboration could mutually benefit each other. Because, we first start off culturally, okay, we're kind of artists and thinkers, and we have a few programmers, and we're okay, how do we organize ourselves to work for what we want? And then we kind of have this envision of what we want and how we want to work, and we kind of do it loosely, but we're we could do it better. How do we do it better? And then we're we need to build some structures, or we need to latch onto some structures. Okay, well, there's this blockchain stuff happening, there's this happening, let's kind of dig into that. So that's where the infinite imaginarium kind of sprung out of, where we have two sides. One, we have the inner imaginarium, which is your head and how your mind works, and then the other part of it is social contracts, and that's where one of our main persons that started that, her name's Dale, and she's from Australia, and she did a lot of stuff with blockchain down there as voting mechanisms and stuff. And so she's the one that said, hey, we need to get these social contracts in place, but also to kind of like, how do we use them where they empower you as a being, you know, more than, you know, like her whole thing was like she loves the possibilities of blockchain, but she also, I like what you guys were saying about how it seems like, you know, we have these new systems, but they're and I think Douglas Rushkoff said the same thing. They're being the old story or the old way of doing things is still happening on there, where, you know, the main token holders or who have the funds have the power. So it's still kind of like centralized in like who has the most tokens, right? And usually it's like developers or the first people that invest into it. And Douglas kind of mentioned this, you know, there's like, you know, the early adopters do it so they can flip the money and then kind of like, you know, not. And I think the way this kind of works to the best is that people really buy in, and it's like their system, you know, kind of like scenario. It's your rules, your network, your communities. So now you're not only in there for money. You can everybody should make a living off of all this work that's being done, but also too, it's your home, your neighbors, and this is the community and culture, and so we're working from that outside, and then we're migrating towards you guys, and hopefully, you know, there's this kind of like collaboration. That's what I see personally.
Yes, definitely. And you know, a lot of, like, I think about a lot of times when I listen to, say, Vitalik Buterin speak, he's always got his head wrapped in game mechanics or game theory when he's talking about incentives and aligning incentives. And game mechanics and game theory are nothing but psychological, like, direction.
Yeah. Yeah. Jim, you're muted.
Yeah, there's no question we're applying game theoretical results to our collaboration, basically, you know, and you know, this starts, you know, from the beginning in designing our debate systems and designing our streams. Now Daniel is working, you know, toward integrating his channels with Scenario, and that's something we can do with the old code base, and as you know, a proof of concept anyway, in preparation for moving to the real thing and getting our feet dirty with the social contracts, whatever, or the rules. Although it's fairly straightforward. I think if Daniel can come up with a model of, you know, we can certainly have a separate meeting on that and brainstorm, you know, how we could best support mines, you know, using Ethereum and Special K, and hopefully get amps for that from Scenario.
Yeah, that's something I'm just, you know, working in my head, but I definitely want to write things down. And also just like what I've been thinking is that the latest development with our community is we're gonna start hosting what we're calling Minds Radio, and so this is like a online radio broadcast, and I have to bring it up, like, so now we're working. Before it was me spearheading everything, and I didn't necessarily like that either, but I was the only one doing everything, so I make the decisions because I'm literally doing everything. And now we have this bigger project and now it's a group. Now, how do we make the group decisions, without it, stepping on each other or this kind of thing? And so like that's what we're having like our meetings about them, which Jim jumped in on one of them yesterday. And so we have another one, and it's about funding. And now how do we, it's very little funding, but it's still like those principles, right? Like, okay, we can't just have one person, even if they put the money up front, because it's supposed to be the community's platform. So, like we got to have something in place where we can make decisions in a group without like, someone running rogue. They can run rogue, but they also need to have the communication or the backing from the community. And that's something that we're like, oh shit, we need something in place.
In the Divvy, we're also evaluating the tools that we want to use for these decision making and other things. I think that's a problem we can certainly collaborate on, because we all have that problem, and that's what the Divvy's for. Now, a while back, Rabbit Dennis asked about MakerDAO. I guess he wanted, he's not advocating it, but he just wanted to get an opinion on that. Can you go ahead, Jeff? You're on mute. Jeff, you're on mute.
Sorry, I was doing stuff in the background. I needed to get your screen in the
forefront. I'm sorry.
Now, MakerDAO, I have to admit, I didn't look much into it. I don't know much about MakerDAO except for that they were the ones to initially discover that bug, and they were able to attack themselves before anybody was able to attack them. So MakerDAO attacking themselves is, I think, the precursor to, a big hack from the DAO. If you want to call it exploit, I guess, not hack, really. But I don't know much about MakerDAO. Can you?
No, I think maybe that's a community we should reach out to, Brent.
Well, when you speak of MakerDAO, it brings me back to DAOhub.org. Like DAOhub.org had the initial plan to allow any DAO to communicate effectively through their platform. And MakerDAO was on there, and Augur was on there. And once the DAO hit, it became so inundated by DAO people that it just, it's still on the front page of the DAO Hub. And I don't know, I wish Felix would redirect and go back to his original plan now that the DAO is broken, to just concentrate on fulfilling the needs of all DAOs. That way, even DivvyDAO could go there and make a community there and use that as their forum. It would probably be perfect. But for right now, it's still the DAO centered. But MakerDAO and DivvyDAO and like Colony when it comes out, I think BitNation is somewhat of a DAO. Like there's a lot of DAOs that like Griff said, we're all going for the same goal here. So as we start to intermingle with each other better, we're going to start figuring out how to help each other better. And
I was going to say MakerDAO, it's I don't know that much about them, but it sounds like it's an interesting and complex DAO. and it sounds like they have some pretty smart developers. What they have is like the DAI, DAI, I believe, and they're trying to create like a stable coin, but they're also trying to deal with, I guess when you start getting into derivatives and things like that, it gets pretty interesting and yet very complex. You know, one of the things that I picked up on was, it was interesting. One of the most interesting things that I've heard in cryptocurrency, and it was like one of the founder, and he was wanting to declare being the founder, and I'm not going to, I'm unbiased, but it was just an interesting tidbit that he wanted like a salary. I was listening to one of their podcasts, kind of like you know, in transparency, and he was explaining he was wanting, in a nutshell, if in case any like foreign authorities, if he was in a foreign country or whatever, if he needed to hightail it out of there or whatever, that's what he was thinking about, and that's kind of why he wanted salary in that regard. And you know, again, unbiased, it was just interesting. But no, I think it's just another project, and I think it's interesting. But I just wanted to add that because I think you guys wanted to hear that.
Now, you know, we want to interoperate with financial systems, but we want to stay out of that. It's taboo. Okay, in terms of exchange of tokens and exchange of tokens for ETH and AMPs, I think that's, you know, can be a target and should be a target, but you know, they're value currencies. They represent something. They represent a resource. It's like ETH buys computing power, AMPs buy attention. Okay, they're not money in the ordinary sense, in that they represent a specific value. If we were to offer direct translation to Bitcoin, on the other hand, I think we would fall under a lot of scrutiny. And I don't.
Yeah, I don't trust the SEC. This is a social experiment for me, so I want to go under the radar. So that's where it's at. These are tokens like Chuck E. Cheese tokens for me.
Yeah, you know, we're buying into the infrastructure to use it. That's all. But
when I was working on GuildWorks, which is as you know, Jim, the project that reminds me a lot of DivvyDAO, it was gamified. So these initial tokens, we called them experience points. And so they weren't money. They weren't something you could trade for whatever. They were just something that leveled you up, you know, according to a system. And, you know, if you have 10 experience points and I have 2, then you have way more experience than I do. That kind of thing. More than a value that was tradable, it was a value that meant something to you personally.
So I guess Rapid Dennis knows, you know, has some insight into the MakerDAO. I need to learn more about it. I think, yeah, I don't remember exactly, but I think some of the financial aspects of it was too big of a target for me to get into. Certainly Doug has been a target, and he's very cautious, and we don't want to make ourselves a big target at this point.
Hey, Jim, Kendall here.
Hi, Kendall. Welcome.
Hey, you want to introduce me to the group? Hey, Jeff, how are you?
Yeah, well,
Pretty good, how are you?
You know, our format has been, you know, each person does a 2-sentence introduction to themselves or whatever. Kendall is the CEO of Prove and Secure. which is I'm a founder of, and he's Improved and Secure is very into funding the Divvy through free trust participation, and he's a good public face for us, even though he's lost a few hairs, but he has a good disposition. I'm a terrible salesman or representative of the organization. I think Kendall is a person who we can use as a front, okay, to the corporate world. Okay, been in business many years, ski bum, a guide, Colorado guide, sailed around the world. Been an artist, a cabinet maker, a contractor, major construction project experience in managing large projects.
Okay. Don't want to go on too long, Jim. No, I mean, here's the thing that my interest really is in how do you make something happen? How do you get something done? Okay, and I in the Divvy document, I kind of went into that document when I finally understood everything, or at least I think I understand. I went in and started doing some editing and adding comments and so forth. But one of the things, I mean, in listening to the conversation just preceding it seems to me, I mean, you're talking about how do you build functionality into whatever it is you're trying to do, and I looked up the term holacracy, and it's one of the things about holacracy is that, and this is a quote, it says, in holacracy, the roles are vested with authority, not the people. Okay, so this would seem to me to be a good place to if you can define roles to achieve certain goals, you can then invest those roles with rewards, okay? And this leads to the cryptocurrencies, okay? And if you can get a sponsor for a role, like Scenario, for instance, with AMPS. In other words, build in the reward into the role, and whoever jumps in and fills that role then is in line to reap the reward. Okay, and the whole document, the whole Divvy document, my understanding is it's building a platform to get things done, to manage projects with consensus, obviously, but ultimately to achieve some sort of a result. Okay, so that's kind of my orientation. I understand that the group is building I mean, taking new concepts and building something that hasn't been built before. Okay, so my orientation, and I'll cut it short here, but my orientation would be to always be looking at the functionality. How do you make it actually happen? Okay, that's how I look at it.
in terms of holacracy, the roles are part of it, but the tasks that those roles have to achieve are where the rewards would actually come from, in my vision. Like someone being a certain role might mean that they are fed that task, but once they complete the task, that's when they get the reward.
Right.
Yeah. Now, we currently, you know, are not. I mean, we're not a holarchy overall, but we support holarchies within our structure, and we have the tools. You know, we have hierarchical tools in here for pool voting by contracts, by some mechanisms. But this is the way we're operating now, and this is sort of the model of what we're building here. And essentially, when we have a critical mass of people, of resources, of people to do a project, it starts. And you know, we prioritize projects essentially by support. But if we have anywhere we find a consensus, and we can begin a project and move it forward, we do. You know, the Open ID login here has received pretty good support, although there's not a lot of votes here yet. It's something that we're looking at combining with the scenario login and hoping to get AMPs for. But we have, you're familiar with Consider It, right? You know, when you have an issue, you see people's positions on it. You have the top pros and the top cons. This is you can see this is Clone the DAO Liquid Democracy, which essentially allows you to delegate your vote. You can delegate your vote on an issue to a person or to a contract, which is some other voting mechanism or whatever. So if you know, if your vote's delegated to the authority, then the authority has your vote, but it's only voluntarily that you would give your vote on something to an authority that you trusted. But we can see here, you know, Jeff is a little sort of on the fence on this. And Brent and I are full speed ahead. Now with Griff on board, I think, you know, if he weighs in on this and he wants to do it, I think that'll be a critical mass to get started on the project. So that sort of, you know, sums up the Divvy process, except for the, you know, the distribution of the Divvy tokens. And we can, what in the heck? My computer is sick. Sorry. But we can put in Kendall here.
Two L's, Jim. 2 L's.
Yeah, I should use your Slack name here, but I don't know.
Like the motor oil.
Yeah, supposed to use your Slack name here. I guess we should put an @ in front of it if it's a Slack name. But okay, I guess we have three categories in the Divvy. We have, you know, I probably should call.
So I've been thinking about how we can automate data entry in a semi-trustless manner. And that's with Google Forms. Since we're using Google Sheets for everything, we could just create Google Forms. So say you wanted to track everybody here at the meeting today as you're doing, and say everybody was going to make, you know, 50 credits or 20 credits or whatever, and all they would do, you would have a form that you would just put in the chat, and then everybody in the chat could go to that form and fill it out.
Yeah, definitely. We can basically clone the scenarios form that they use for AMPs. And that would, you know, that's what we're planning to do there. Unfortunately, there's so many things that have been decided. So I've changed the structure here a little bit. I made the three of us the Divvy managers because we want to add other leaders that without breaking the signer co-signer rule for distributing Divvy, which is currently in the hands of the managers, myself, Jeff, and
Brent.
Yeah.
Hey, I have a question. I was trying to fill out that form while you were doing it. Is that a problem if you're doing it and I'm trying to do it?
No.
Yeah.
Okay. I was trying to, I put blog. I don't know how to, you know, I just want to put it down. I did write a blog. In fact, I plan on going back and adding a couple of links to it later, just kind of a working document. It was just a blog. I don't know how to claim it. And it's also kind of like, hey, I mean, what do I get extra credit for getting Griff Green in here and 15 minutes of kicking that link out? How can I get points for being a recruiter on that, and how frequent should I do that? I'm passing these around like a madman.
You know, we trust you. You're getting $1,000 Divvy dollars a month.
Okay.
So if you put in more effort than that, put it on the sheet.
Okay.
I think a secondary question to that is, how do you know what the value of your work is?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, right now, you know, we have the decision mechanism, which is, you know, the weak consensus, and that's real easy if you have a group of three. You have one mediator, you know, who makes the decision, but you know, hopefully we'll graduate past this spreadsheet very soon, and you know, have mechanisms in there where you know, the signer, you know, will, you know, Brent puts in $1,000 Divvy dollars for a job, and when you sign it, you're putting your reputation on the line. Was that really worth $1,000 Divvy dollars? And how much of it can you attest to? So I could sign it and say I, you know, attest to 50% of it.
Okay.
And Jeff can up that. He can say, well, you know, from, you know, the parts I know about, you know, you know, we're higher than that, whatever. And
Okay, I have a problem with recognizing I guess the value of the DivvyDAO. And I say that when you're throwing out a figure, it's unless I know it's 1 for 1 equals 1 USD. Otherwise, I have no clear understanding of how to value the time and work.
We're using 1 USD for now.
Okay. Now
that makes it simpler.
Okay. So that being said, I'll just take what Jim just had to say. I don't know about like a blog or recruiting, or just, to me that's just like water under the bridge for now. In fact, I mean, I can put that down, but I'm not going to claim anything, and we can hash it out later when we go over the spreadsheet right now. How's that?
Yeah. You know, and
That's my question. I just wasn't quite sure, and I just needed to take a moment to clarify.
yeah, well, the idea of assigning a role is that we don't have to put everything down. You know, the role includes the stuff you do.
Okay.
You know, and having a report, you know, of the things you did is a good thing. And most of my jobs on Friday, whether they ask me to or not, I list my accomplishments for the week and my plans for the next week. And I should probably get in that habit again. But
So, I mean, it sounds to me like what the discussion is about is kind of sneaking up on how are the people who are providing value getting rewarded, and how do they know what that reward actually translates into, right? So if you're looking at it from the standpoint of roles and tasks, okay, which seems to me a good way of doing it. In other words, prioritizing goals, creating the task, or and I'm not sure exactly which, you know, this is maybe a chicken and egg sort of thing, but so prioritizing goals and defining the roles and coming up with a set of tasks, assigning let's call it an initial value, okay, and on a one-to-one exchange between $1 and a Divvy token, right? And we have this weekly meeting, okay? So and I would say initially, don't be too ambitious with regard to the goals to start out. Create something that is easy to accomplish, and assign create the role, put the people in it, assign a reward to the tasks that need to be done, and every week. And this could perhaps solve the problem with regard to the value of what you're actually doing. If you do it on a weekly basis, and a group of the participants are engaged, everyone's pretty much going to know who's been doing what and what they've been contributing. Okay, so I would say it would make sense to award tokens based on consensus using the considerate format, right? I mean, you could set up one of these proposals on from disagree as being 0 and agree being whatever the upper limit of the tokens that had been assigned for completing that task, right?
yeah,
So
and all this has to be figured out, and we're our intention is to use Taiga for the project management.
Okay.
I've actually integrated Taiga-like structure right in with GitHub. GitHub, I've integrated Calendar, Taiga structure integrated with Calendar, and the Slack is already integrated with the GitHub is already integrated with the Slack that you built, Jim. I was going to do mine, and then you said you already had one, so I integrated it with that Slack instead. And I want to